Hello Ace, this is RetroTK2 and today we're back making our Pokémon Rom Hack. Last time we set up our Pokémon launcher to launch straight into the game and load in our initial first state. Now I had planned to keep it to move on from that Ace and just go back straight into the advanced map stuff, but I figured it would be a good idea to finish the job on this and actually make it so that we could load in any of the 10 slots or just simply load the ROM itself, but without loading in the actual save state. So we're going to do that now, and we're going to do it by just cleaning up the code a little bit as well. I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff going on here that's not exactly the most desirable code in the world here. And yeah, I think it would probably be a good idea just to, well, to make it so that that's a lot neater and a lot tighter. And yeah, so I think I'm going to start with this one here first, this code first. So we will make this a key sender, I guess is probably the best name for this class. Key sender is probably the best name for this class. So here we go. I'm just going to take all of this. This isn't exactly the best way to refactor this. Ideally you want to have some unit tests around this code, but well, as you know, we're just sort of doing this code freehand, which isn't usually a good idea, but well, that's what we're doing at the minute. So yeah, essentially. But ideally you'd want some sort of unit tests to be around this. You wouldn't necessarily want to be doing some freehand manual testing like we are doing here, but it should be okay. It'll do a job. It'll do the job certainly that we want. So we want to wait until this recompiles, go play ROM, and it all loads in as we would expect it to. Brilliant. So I want to make it so that I can pass in a key to the fire key option, and I think the best way to do that is just to have dot F1, I believe. Alt and add the keys to this. And we want F1 to be passed here, which is all perfect. So we will type this as key, changing this to key, and then also taking away the F1 from this actual method name, which is all perfect. This shouldn't be too bad. I'm actually going to also capitalize that letter there just because it's a public method, and I don't necessarily want that to be, yeah, so I wanted to all be consistent with the naming. I kind of want this to be a private method because it doesn't get called anywhere else. Although I suppose it could be, no, I kind of like the way we're going with that. And maybe I actually could just change this to send key as opposed to fire, because that makes a lot more sense. Perfect. Okay, good. This is coming along nicely. Should fire key probably should be changed to just a generic should send key, which is a good idea. And I think the best way to do this would probably be with a for loop. Best way to do this would be with a for loop and also with the actual key we want to use as a list. Now you'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. Yes, lists, by the way, as we haven't learned about lists yet. Lists are pretty much exactly the same as arrays. The only thing is that they use this generic type. I'm not actually sure. Parameter, I guess, would probably be the best way to describe that. But we will, of course, cover all this in the C# series whenever I get the chance to get round to it. And I'm not making Pokémon Rom Hacks, Ace. I really do actually need to get back making the series. It just takes so long writing a script for it and trying to do it that way, yes. But yeah, no, I definitely need to get back into it. But anyway, let's get stuck back into this here. So this is going to be our I want to call them function keys because that's what they are. Function keys. And basically in here we're just going to have a list of, sorry, it's not ints, it's keys. There we go. So list keys. Again, not necessarily loving this code the way it is now. Perhaps we'll want a more shelled out class for this, but for now it'll do. So just typing in all of the actual function keys that we're going to use, and of course this goes the whole way to 10, so perfect. And I kind of want to put in a key here as well, but I'm not going to. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to leave it. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I ain't exactly in love with this code base at the minute, but it'll do a job. Yeah, it'll definitely do a job. Okay. And I kind of want this to be play ROM to be false, so that we're not actually sending our key. Maybe should send key is incorrect. It's more like should load state. That's better. That's a bit more like it. That's a bit more descriptive. And we already know that this isn't going to change. This is going to be pretty much exactly the same. So we want to probably create a more generic method for this. And that's what we're going to do right now, yes. Launch VBA. Perfect. And then we also want to have an override of this method, which is going to be our launch VBA, but we also pass in our index. Yeah, we could do that, where we'll type it, we'll pass in our state index. Again, it's not exactly in love with this primitive obsession. That's whenever you're using ints as opposed to actual concrete classes. But that should be okay. We'll press on with it for the moment and see how we get on with that in a little bit. So state index, and then we want to essentially just copy this code down here, which again, you never really want to be doing. But, well, here we are. You know me, yes. I do my best. And we want our state index to be, we want this to be true. Okay, launch VBA with load state. That's probably a better idea to put that there. So I'm trying to differentiate between these two. So launch VBA is just the standard launch of the VBA, and then there's one that'll have its load state, and then we have the actual state index that we want. The state index, I don't know if we should make that, well, because we're using with F1s and F2s, I kind of wanted to make it so that this works the way you would expect it to. If you pass in state index of 1, it will load the state F1. But of course, since our index starts at 0 with arrays, I kind of want to make this maybe just a sort of nothing key, but I can't really do that because I'll just take away from the actual state index. I'm not really in love with this type of codiness, but it'll do a job, I think, and which is totally fair. Okay, that's okay. Okay, then we'll want to have our for loop here. And we could actually have the for loop start at 1, I suppose. Yeah, we could do that, and we want that to be less than or equal to 10. So then we have 1 and less than or equal to 10. Then we want to have it so that our launcher with load state goes in there, which is perfect. Do we even need the launcher, I suppose? This is the question. I mean, not really, I suppose. I mean, there's nothing happening here. The only thing that's happening, I suppose, is this, where this will go to true instead of false. So that means that all we need to do is also put in just a Boolean value for should load state and set its default value to false. And then that would go to here. And that would mean that we could get rid of this one, since it would be doing 2 jobs there, yes. And have our load VBA like so. Should load state will be true. And since this is our default parameter, we can just have this as a parameterless method that will have our should load state equal to false. And that should all pretty much work as expected. So now then we're also going to put in an if statement here, and we're going to have state equal to the index itself, which is I. Perfect. And then we also want to have it so that our key is saved. So we want this to be state load key, We want to set that equal to whatever the state, oh no, shoot, what did I call it? Function keys. We want that set to the index I minus 1. And that should all hopefully just work. Yes, pretty much. I'm expecting this one to work. And state load key, I kind of want that to set that equal to our function key 1, because I kind of want that already preloaded just in case somebody does press it. I mean, it doesn't really matter because we know it's going to get set, but yeah, it just feels like good housekeeping. Yes, it feels like something that we should be doing. And then we have it up here. This is perfect. Send key, set load key. There's an awful lot of cleanup we could do here, is, but I kind of like where this is going. I think that it's actually working out quite well, and we'll put in a nice little if clause anyway, just in case. If function keys dot count is less than, no, if I is less than count. Is that what I want? I'm trying to make it so that it won't necessarily crash out if I is passed, but honestly it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I'm trying to be too clever here, which can sometimes happen. So let's hopefully see. Oh, I need to put in actually my GBA GUI layout dot begin horizontal, and then I also need to put in our end horizontal. And it would probably be a good idea actually just to show you what both of these do. So end horizontal needs to happen because you need to, whenever you begin your horizontal, you need to also close it out. And if I don't have these, I'll show you what happens. I'm pretty much just getting like a big list, hopefully. If it's all worked, we should just get a big list of buttons. There you are, state 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then if we do the begin horizontal, you should see that it'll go all in a big horizontal row. Hopefully, if I've coded it correctly. Please tell me I've coded it correctly. I haven't coded it correctly. What has happened? Oh dear. Why has that not worked? I'm an idiot. Basically what has happened is that I've done begin horizontal, end horizontal inside the loop, so that the actual horizontal part is for the button itself and not for the actual entire loop. So basically it's created 10 of these begin horizontals and end horizontal loops as opposed to the actual just one standing one. So hopefully now this should all work. And of course, whenever retro isn't being silly, it of course does work exactly as expected. So let's have a look here. Let's have a look at state 1. Loads in state 1 as you would expect. Let's see state 2. Does it go to Pewter City? Hey. Brilliant. And so if I do state 3, what happens? It just loads up normally, yes, as you would expect. That's brilliant. And then standard play ROM will bring it in there perfectly. That's all brilliant, yes. I think that's pretty darn good. I probably could end the video there. Although I suppose I can, well, I want to bring this one out into its own class. And I suppose we could tidy this up a little bit. Maybe. I really do want this to be in its own class. What would I call the class? State load class, maybe? State class. It's a tricky one, yes. Not 100% sure about that. This could be probably put into its own method, to be fair. And we will call this our VBA launch button. Maybe. It needs an int, which isn't good. Okay, needs an int. I don't usually like doing this sort of stuff, yes, but like if it is possible to do so, you can do it, I suppose. Should load state, and then the int would be, what would the int be? Function key, maybe. Function key number, and we'll set that equal just to our standard 1. And we also want to have our button. Now you see, now we're getting complicated. Yeah, no, maybe it's not as easy as I thought it would be because of the eye. Yeah, the eye's making that one difficult, is. So I mean, this is the thing with it, refactoring. You know, if you feel like it's going to be a bad idea, just pull out, and you know, don't worry too much about it. It's far better just to go, oh, I was incorrect, and you know, to carry on like that. I think that's just a better idea. I really want to get these. You know, they're teasing at me. I feel like I could do something with the mace and just make it like a display button, some sort of like display button method, so that I could make it just that. And I suppose we could do that actually, but I need that eye. That's the problem, is that eye. I suppose I could have it that the launch VBA would be the launch VBA. And we'll make it just a wee bit more shelled out, maybe. Okay, so launch VBA, and then we could have the should load state. We'll have the should load state equals to false, and then we'll have the state index equals 1. Oops, equals 1, and then we'll have that equal the state index. We'll have this equal to should load, and we'll have this as an override to this. I don't know whether we need this. Just a name. Methods do not match. Properties, blah, blah, blah. If I do that, maybe will that help my cause? Oh dear. This refactor could be running away from me, yes, but we'll keep on pressing on with it for the moment. Okay, launch VBA is the problem here. We go up here, put that in. Save state, we do want that to be true. And we want the eye to be there, which is perfect. Oops, perfect. What's our other complaint? Key issue. Am I missing something? What am I missing? Is there another? Oh, I'm an idiot. Of course, it's because we've already extracted that out into its own actual script. And then I guess Control Z it a wee bit too far, more than I should have is, and got us to that point. So let's have a look. Okay, that works still, which is good. And I want to delete all that. I want to get rid of this, which is great. Oh, oops. I'm not actually sure what I even did there. I was just clicking so quick, yes. Now, so what I mean is now that all of this is done, I'm hoping it might just be possible to add in a button. I mean, you could actually add a button in here, although these are all sort of things you're sort of thinking, maybe this should be its own sort of class. Should it be its own launch VBA button class? And, you know, you get to a point whenever you're like, well, maybe. Perhaps it should, maybe it shouldn't be. I kind of just want to do this for clarity's sake. False, even though it's not necessary. Okay, what we're going to do now is take this out, extract its own method, display launch button, and no, we don't. Yeah, we do want that. Yeah, we do. We want the index to go through, and then we also want to put in maybe the title, which is going to be this. Now you can choose whether or not this is actually a better idea or whether this is a refactor that's worth it is. I think it is, just because it really does just spell it all out for us, and it kind of makes everything go into one line, which I really like. State index. You can see the state index is repeated constantly throughout the code. Usually that would mean that it's time to make a class about the state index, but well, we'll see. We'll see how we get on here first, and then with that gone, now we can invert our if, which is cool. I always love doing that if. Just, you know, if this isn't true, just get out of the method nice and quick, and we do it up here as well. I always love doing that. I think it's always really nice practice. So with that gone, we can now do a display button launch for the play ROM, and that all should just work quite nicely. And we can even just put in a start index of 1, which is cool. And that's that. So display launch button, to say display state launch, display state launch buttons, state launch buttons. Okay, cool. And as you can see, I mean, not exactly, not exactly the cleanest code in the world, Ace, but it certainly feels a lot easier to do. So you're displaying your launch button, which is the play ROM button. Then you're trying to display your state launch buttons, which of course are our state class buttons. Function keys, we want to put them. See, this is where you're sort of thinking, okay, state launch buttons should be in their own class maybe, but then we've also got launch buttons. Oh, it's just a disaster. I certainly want to put this in its own class as well. This is a definite one that we're sort of looking at going, maybe it should be in its own class. Load state key, and then you want the state key to be overrode. I tell you what, I'm going to make its own wee class, public state loader, maybe. Do state loader and see how we get on with this. Oops, public, oh come on, public class, state loader, and then we want to have our two load state, the load state, and our load key. Oh no, wait, sorry. It should load state, and yeah, there she is. Load state key load, whatever you fancy. And then we want to have public void prep for load state, int load state index, and then we want just a normal one, which would be just prep for load. Is that a good idea? Prep load state, prep for load state, and just prep for launch maybe. You see, you kind of want it to be consistent in your naming areas because these are both trying to do the same thing. So you could do prep load state and then have launch. You see, this is another one. You could actually just make it so that it's the actual VBA launcher, this, as opposed to a state loader. It's an actual launcher, which is not bad. Not a bad idea at all. I kind of like that. And that's consistent with all of this here, because all this logic looks very like this is trying to be its own class. So I think I'm going to do that. And then we can have it so that the launcher does this, and then maybe this would have the prep load state, and then we could have one for the, yeah, okay, this could actually work. On updates, this could be our on update logic, which is all this, which is essentially, yeah, this is exactly what we want, because look, all of these are consistent with it, and it looks kind of cool to me. So I'm going to put this into here. The only thing we don't have is our VBA process, which we do need to have. And okay. Let's create this. So let's create a process. And usually whenever I'm doing these sorts of refactors although I don't really recommend doing this, you'll notice I say that a lot, but then go ahead and do the thing anyway. What I'll do is anything that I know needs to be a private variable, I'll keep it as a private variable, and I'll make it public temporarily, just while I get the actual thing working. Create a state loader. State loader equals new state loader. Perfect. And then we want to have it so that the VBA process is the one that we will need to change. Yeah, perfect. So it doesn't get used, but of course it will get used whenever we need to, sorry. Yeah, we have newed, yeah, okay, we've newed up the state loader, and then we come down here, put in our VBA process, and hopefully that should all just work. No, it won't work because we haven't done our new update method, which is in here. So just to get this working, I want to check to see if the on update method will all work. It probably should. Problem is that these haven't been replaced yet, Ace, so that's a bit of an issue. See, this is the reason why doing all this stuff without unit tests and all that fun jazz is far from ideal. You ideally want to have some sort of unit tests going on, but we'll press on. So as you can see, these all need to be made public, but they all should be private. I'm just trying to make sure that we've got it all set up and it's going to still all work. And if it doesn't work, then I'm going to be doing a nice big Control Z fairly quickly. Although the equivalent of that, brilliant. The equivalent of that in real development would be doing a source tree reset. So okay, now that we've got all that done, what do we want to do now? Okay, we want to do our launch VBA, and you can already see that this is all trying to be, it looks like it's trying to be its own class at the minute. So we're going to have the launch actually, okay, passed in with its VBA path and the ROM path. So that's all perfect. Certainly a lot better than passing in this stuff. I'm happier to pass in the VBA executable path and the ROM path into our launch VBA class, which is perfect. So okay, let's get this all in there now. Launch VBA, and now you could put this all into this same class, but I really don't want to do that, is because I don't think it's a good idea for a number of reasons. And I think the obvious reason would be that, you know, these should be separate. VBA class, VBA path, and VBA ROM. They should be separate. They're separate sort of concepts. It doesn't really matter what sort of path is passed to the VBA ROM. It shouldn't have anything to do with that. And yeah, that's kind of the way I'm thinking of it there. I'm kind of tempted. I'm very tempted to have it so that we can actually set the state loader's ROM path, set it with a process instead of, though, because this is constantly being updated, it's probably a bad idea. Okay, so I'm going to backtrack on that pretty quickly, yes. But it would be a good idea to have it so that we would just instead pass it a process that had already been constantly newed up, and then just changing the path that way. But it's getting too complicated. So VBA path, VBA executable path, perfect. And then string GBA ROM path. And you can spell all this stuff out, Ace. You know, we already now know what all this stuff should be, but always good just to keep it all very, very nice and, you know, very, very explicit. And we want this to be, what now, retro? Because we don't have the start index. So instead of making everything nice and neat and tidy, we are starting to make it a lot more, a lot less desirable. I'm not in love with this, Ace, at the minute, but I don't mind it. Okay, we'll make it a lot more explicit. And public void launch with state. We want that to be int. And we want to set that as the state index. Prep load state, I suppose, is important. Load state index, so we would already have the load state index, which is cool. And with that, we could use that instead of the start index. So we would already have that there, which is great. So this actually works out great, yes. Yeah, so I already had this in mind. Just now is the time to implement it. So load state index. So we would already have that public method stored. Prep load state. So we could have it. Yeah, this is where I was going with this. Yes, that makes a lot more sense. So what I wanted to do here instead was, okay. You see, now we've come into a little bit of an issue here, is because we've gone very, very far deep into this refactor, and ideally you don't want to be going too deep into your refactors before you actually have done a manual test and check to see, or well, a manual test, any sort of test, to check to make sure that you're still all working. And here we're not getting that at all, which is a bit of a problem. So what I want to do now is just do a prep load or state loader. dot prep load state. This is why you want to make it nice and short. Small incremental changes is ideally what you want to do in your refactors. And I'm going to do a launch, and we're going to just plug in the save state as well. So VBA path, yeah, perfect. GBA ROM? No, ROM path is it? Yeah, ROM path. And then we want to put in our should load state. Now ideally we'd already, with the prep load state, we'd already have should load states set to true, but for this sake of argument, we're going to just set it in like so. Should load state, okay. And ideally this should all just work, yes. Fingers crossed. We still get in? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. Oh, I don't actually think it compiled there, so let's make sure that we're okay. Brilliant. Very good. Okay, cool. Yeah, still all working. And so now what does that mean? We kind of want to have it so that it prep load state launch. Maybe we could just have it with launch load state, launch with load state. We could have it that we set path so that we're not constantly passing it into the launch. Yeah, fair enough. Sounds good to me. Prep load paths. Oh, sorry, launch paths. I'm exactly in love with this prep launch path stuff is. A more complex class perhaps I suppose could be made for these executable paths, but for the moment it'll do the job, you know. And really that's kind of what we want, I suppose. I mean, we could have it where it is just that. I say ideally I do want to be passing the actual process. I think that would be far better. And maybe we should. Maybe I should just pass in the process as the launch. Because then we wouldn't actually have to even worry too much about all this stuff. Launch with state. Launch with loaded state. Yeah, that's good. Launch with loaded state. Launch with prepped state. See, this is it. It's you're trying to get to a point where this makes sense in what you're trying to do. Typo in prep. Prepped. Ah, come on, leave it. So launch with prep state. So you're trying to get a consistent concept going with your class. So prep, we already know what prep means. It means preparing it. So maybe you could have it as prep or prepared or whatever. So long as it's consistent, I think this is the only thing that it needs. And yeah, with that, I believe that the only thing we need is a process. And instead, I want to try to put this process in. And I kind of want to make it so that we can just start that process. Start. If we do a new, sorry, I'm going to just check something here. If we do a new process, does that allow us to pop in an executable for that process? It doesn't. Does it allow us to type in arguments? ARGs? No. We don't get that chance. We only get the chance to state info. Okay. Maybe it's the, oh, is that start info or is that state info? Oops. Start info. Gets or sets the property to pass the start. Okay, so let's try. Oh, there's all this stuff to do, yes. And you may think to yourself, well, this really isn't necessary at all. But I kind of like the idea of it, and it does allow us to do okay. And then can we, presumably you can just pass in a start info. Okay, so a start info would be a little bit more desirable. And that's what we're going to go with here is we're going to have our start info. So start info. Meaning that we could have it so that we use start info here, maybe for the launch. the initial launch. Okay, start info down here. Okay. So initially I want to just check to make sure that it's all going to work the way I want it to. So start info's coming in, and then we want to just pass it out as the executable, I guess, or file name, I suppose, and then start info would be just our arguments. Perfect. And this doesn't work because should load state is not set. Well, with prepared state, so we want it to be true. Perfect. And now that we've got this, we've got a prepared state, we've got the index launched, and we want the state loader to go in, and we want to do a launch. VB executable. No, we want launch with, launch with prepared state. We want new process start info. We want the file name, which is going to be our VBA path, hopefully, unless I've messed it up. And then we want our ROM path. Do we want a ROM path? Do we want a ROM path? Do we want this to be like this format though? If I pass this in, what's going to happen? We'll have a double check here and make sure I get the feeling that it's going to crash on us. And if it does crash on us, that means that we need to backtrack. Okay, it worked, which was good. Okay, there's a lot going on here. A lot of stuff that's incorrect here. It looks like it's loading double. Oh, goodness sakes. That's the reason why it's loading double. Okay, play ROM. Okay, well, that's because it's not recompiling. Alright, now it's recompiling. Now it has recompiled. Okay, that's incorrect. That play ROM shouldn't be doing that. Okay, that's good. That's correct. And that's correct. Okay, so it does work. The ROM path start info does seem to work, I believe. Now why is... Because the shoot index isn't... Of course. Okay. So as you can see, even though we've done our refactor or whatever, it did have the assumption that we were using... we've taken away the actual assumption that we were using our should load state as well. Yes? So you can sort of see how these, your behavior of your code will actually just change if you're doing refactorings, and that's why it can be incredibly important. Like here, it doesn't necessarily matter because, well, I'm not necessarily really that bothered by that stuff, but it can be difficult trying to guide the refactor into the place where you want it to be, you know what I mean? And it's lucky that we've got away with it here, sure, but, Anyway, something to be careful about is, no doubt about that. So, okay, display launch button, we want that to be... Do we need this display launch button? Is it important to have this? Is it that important? Is no, probably not. Is the answer to that. Oh, I'm an idiot. No, I'm not an idiot. That should all work. Oh, because, okay. I'm an idiot. So although we're passing in the arguments, and that will all work as expected, because we're passing in the arguments themselves and they're getting converted here, it won't necessarily matter, which is a bit of a problem. Okay, let's get a... Okay, you can see where we're going here is this can be a bit of an issue. Copying and pasting code as well, which is always diabolical. Even when it's not diabolical, it's diabolical, yes. Oh, and you can see how messy this is getting. Oh, this is blech. Nope, I don't like this at all. But alas, this is what we're going with at the minute. So, yeah, I'm not in love with what we're doing here, is, and I hope that's coming through certainly in this recording. But, well. Now I'm trying to get out of a jam that I'm currently in, and yeah, this isn't what you want to be doing ever. But it's all part of the fun. It's all part of the fun, and I think we're getting there. Okay, so what I want to do is have it so that this format is set up like so that we're doing the format here. Is this what we want to be doing? I think it is. I think it's okay for this to handle its own formatting. Maybe. It's not okay. It's not okay because what we want to have it is that this is actually just using the start info. Yeah. And it isn't having its own format. It doesn't care. It shouldn't have to care about what the actual format of this thing is coming in. So really all that should be set up here. And then this should be put out into its own method, maybe. I mean, you could. I'm inclined to make this. It's a property, and we just get the VBA start info. Yeah. Nothing crazy, nothing too mad about that. Just that's what it is, and there it is. There, you know, nice, quick, and easy. Yes. Launch with prep state. We want the prep state to be this. Launch VBA, we want to do something more along the lines of this. Prep state. Launch with prep state. Much nicer, much better. For that a lot more than this, what we were doing up here. This is a big refactor race, so I'm just going to do a save there and check to make sure that we're still at least firing on some sort of cylinders. Yeah. Step one, okay, and this one should hopefully still be broken. Good. So it hasn't fixed itself. So its behavior, although the behavior isn't correct, at least we know what it's meant to be doing. And yeah, that, as they say, is that. And I am inclined to make this launch button, I am inclined to make this a more generic method with an action lambda. Now, you see, this is where we're sort of getting into polymorphism, is where we probably should be thinking, well, okay, load state and launch, these are two different sort of types of behaviors for the state loader. So maybe we should have one that is a prep state and the other one that's not. And then this would just gear up the actual class depending on that. I kind of want to leave that just for the polymorphism segment, like we've sort of done up here with the path saver. So for now, maybe I'm just going to make it that I fired in as a if statement. Go back to our normal ifs. Maybe. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do this. I'm not in love with the way that this is working out at the minute as the refactors have been going on, but I think we're doing okay. I think it's definitely getting better, or getting to a better point, if that makes sense. And you could probably do it launch with prep state. You could probably make the start index here instead if you want. I like the idea of this load state though, and prepping it with that and not having to necessarily worry about that. It'll become, or at least I think it's going to be better in the long run. I think it's going to be better whenever we start trying to make it more polymorphic. And yeah, I like where it's going. Let's put it that way. I like where it's going with this basic idea. And then what I want to do here is, so I want to have just play ROM. Maybe play ROM is not right. Maybe it should be more launch ROM. Launch ROM. No need for formatting, of course. Remove this. Display launch buttons. Good. I think that's good to have that separated. And then just have this as a standard launch. Excellent. Oh, and we need our VBA start info, of course. Makes sense. With its load state, which isn't important since it's a launch, which is important because it should be process info instead, process start info. Correct? Maybe. Process start info. Should be set to false by default. No, prep state is correct. Prep state is correct. Prep state should be this. Sorry, yes. Oh dear. The wonders of Retro's refactors. Launch. Start info. Yeah, start info. And should load state should equal false. We don't want it the loaded state on startup. And we want this one to be true, because of course we do want it to load state whenever we're trying to launch with a prep state. This makes sense. This, I believe, is a little bit better than what we had before. At least now it's in its own state loader class. We can move it all out. We can make all these fields private, which is fantastic. Oops. Oh dear. And oops, look at that. Even with that little, these are the sort of refactors that catch you out, yes. That wasn't linked up. And, again, ideally you want to be having unit tests supporting these changes that you're making, but, well, we don't have that, so we're pressing on. But I think what we've got here is pretty cool. It seems to be pretty good. And now that we've got this, actually I'll just double check to make sure that we are at least at a place where we should be. Hopefully. State 2, no. Look at that, is absolutely dying. Failure to launch, that was not good at all. Arguments out of range. All sorts of problems going on there. So what is going on here? That was not good. Oh, oh dear. So if it is, so it was just trying to launch it because the actual button hadn't been getting pressed. It's just trying to constantly launch it. Again, yes, you can see how these refactors can go completely wrong. And now we're back to where we should be. Hopefully launch ROM will just launch it. Okay, good. So yeah, as you can see, fair enough, I am recording, so I suppose I'm under a little bit more pressure, but as you can see, pretty standard refactors, fairly easy, but yet, they can still go pretty wrong very, very quickly. But yeah, it could be made read-only, why not? That sounds good to me. And then we want to inline this method here. Yes, please, remove it. Okay, method is used for unsubscribing. Yes, it is. I was hoping you would inline it, but you didn't. Okay, let's inline it myself. And there you go. And as you can see now, yes, I think we've made it a little bit better. You may disagree, but I personally think that the concepts going on here are a lot better. And I think that with polymorphism, we could clean this up a lot nicely, a lot better. And I really like where we're going with this. I like this idea of the prep load state. So you prep it up and then you launch it straight away. You could probably even argue that by setting the prep load state first, you could then initially launch it afterwards, but then you would have to make sure that you didn't launch it then. But then you could argue that, well, why don't we just pass in the int instead of having this prep load state nonsense, which I'm actually inclined to do, I must admit. I am inclined to pass in a int with that. Yes, I'm going to do that actually instead. I just think it actually makes more sense. Load state index makes more sense. Add it in there and get rid of prep load state. That way that you've only got one method call to make, and it all makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, I like that a lot better. And now we're only on one line, which is cool. I'm trying to look for any other quick sort of updates that we can make is, but as you can sort of see, I think we've done pretty darn well here. And well, so we can just get tidied up as well. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that is where I am going to leave it. And we'll just double check to make sure that everything's all working before we carry on. And as you can see, we are very much firing on all cylinders, yes, which is all brilliant. And I can just control it from here as well as I want. Now we could go crazy with this, yes, and we could actually make it so that we had like a folder that we could load in that would be all our different states that we wanted. So we could actually have like Brock's Gym, Pewter City, blah 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 or something like that, just certain descriptions for the actual states themselves, I will definitely be leaving that for far later in development, because I really do actually want to get back into the advanced map stuff, because while this stuff is really important and it is great to just have it so that you can just load it in like that, as opposed to having to go into Visual Boy and do all the open close nonsense. Actually, I'll do it here. So I'll launch the ROM, go to File, Open, have to go to here and then press Open again, and then having to wait until we go in. I mean, admittedly, with our save state set up now, we could just do that, but I mean, just having it so that you could just, you know, load it in like that, and it would be at the right state. You know, it's just boop, we're back in. That's going to be fantastic whenever it comes to the main development. So anyways, yeah, that'll do. Rate, comment, subscribe. Yes, I hope you're enjoying this series. I know I'm having great fun with it. You can email me at retrotk2@gmail.com with any suggestions that you have, and any of the software other than Advanced Map and the ones that we've seen so far. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in the next video.